All right, we are starting week 11 of our 16 weeks, 15 weeks of actually having classes and coursework. And so let's, as we do on Mondays, let's familiarize ourselves. When we were meeting last class, we were learning about the basics of computer coloring, the flat color, the duotone, and the full spectrum. And if none of those are familiar to you, you want to review what we were doing last class. This was our tutorial YouTube. And so in assignment 5, which is making a spot illustration, a free-floating, think sticker, tattoo, t-shirt design kind of illustration, we learned how to make vector line art with digital inking. We did that on October 28th, a week ago. And then we learned how to put color behind those vector outlines through first flat color and then learning things like duotone and then full spectrum. And that's as far as we got in our 9 videos, right? The theme for the project is VOTE, however you want to interpret that. And then today, November 4th, our goal is to finish this up and make it really usable. So we're going to be doing that with something you'll see in links, which is a site called redbubble.com. And this is what's called a print-on-demand site. So you can see this is one that I just made for my son. This spot illustration. And I just ordered him his shirt for his birthday, right? And what's nice about Redbubble is I can set this up and put it in my portfolio, but make it private only for me. That's what the little lock means. Because though the 1954 Godzilla is in the public domain, all other forms of Godzilla are not. And I'm saying that for the YouTube. 1954 Godzilla, let's say that's what this is. Public domain. It is, yeah. But it's hard to differentiate between all the different versions, right? So if I were to edit this and I wanted to make it public for sale, I would say anyone can view this work, and I would have to agree to all of the Redbubble user agreements. This is all that copyright stuff, that I have the right to sell the products containing this artwork, including any featured company's name or logo, any featured person's name or face, and any feature words or images created by someone else. Now, that's trying to just cover all ways that people infringe on intellectual property, right? And on privacy rights, right? But remember that public figures like politicians in this election year, those politicians are not protected in terms of their face. So that's why you can see a lot of commentary, editorial stuff with public figures. But before you post anything publicly, you have to agree to that. So that you are, that's how Redbubble covers itself legally. So if you are doing something for this assignment that you can get away with educational spontaneous fair use for your learning, when you make it public to sell as a sticker, as a t-shirt, and I had a student like 6 years ago or so use this assignment, put it up on Redbubble, and I didn't know what they were doing was fan art because I didn't know the game they were referencing, and it fit the theme. But they made in 3 days like $150, I think, through products, which is quite a bit because you only get like 10% of each product. And he kind of freaked out. He says, oh, am I going to get in trouble? I said, well, not if you change it pretty quickly. Because he was doing it based on an indie game that was really popular at the time, right? So know whether you're selling your work or whether you're selling it on intellectual property, right? And so that's why I didn't make this Godzilla public, right? It's definitely not trading on my own work or my own ideas. But my son will like it for his t-shirt. So we like Redbubble because it makes things possible for you to keep private if you're not sure about their legality, right? For selling and for making public, and it's a way for us to learn how to use it. So this is optional for you, but if you go to redbubble.com, you can create an account. Whenever I print something on my own, I also try to support an artist and print something else, since you have to pay for shipping anyway. So I got this for my other son, which is a nice spot illustration with text design. So this is kind of a full poster design. And it's inspired by Hokusai's The Great Wave, but makes its own spot illustration with ramen, right? It's called The Great Ramen. And you can see everything we've learned in this assignment put into practice here in this professional work. So you have clean line art, and then you have coloring behind, and then what would we call this type of coloring? So we can see it especially in the blue of the waves, right? You count how many colors you can see beyond white and black. Do you see more than one color filling in each shape? So then we know it's not just straight flat color. I can see a light blue and a dark blue right there, right? So that is called duotone. And then you ask yourself, okay, is it a hard edge or a soft edge between those color variations between light and dark? That's a hard edge, so this is hard edge duotone. Now they have this little reflected light of the orange kind of coming through, which Hokusai does in his original print a little bit. And that is kind of like full spectrum, right? Because you're putting a warm color into a different color frequency into the blue of the waves. So this is playing with duotone, hard edge, and full spectrum, just in little ways. All right, so let's go back to our work. This is our course outline. What are we doing today? We are going to be turning this in. I'm going to be showing you all the ways to finish it off. We're going to do presentation critiques on it. And a great way to do a presentation critique for this is to try it out in Redbubble and see what product you think it makes best. Is this best for a shower curtain? Is this best for a canvas bag? Is this best for a mouse pad? Is it best for a journal, a sticker, a magnet, a face mask, a pair of socks, all that kind of thing. So we'll know about kind of the practical versatility of a well-designed spot illustration. Then we're going to add text to it, like we saw with the Redbubble examples. They had the spot illustration, but they also had a text treatment. And that's going to turn it into poster design. That starts assignment 6. So let's go to the assignment. And we can always shortcut to the assignment, right? If you want the full introduction, go through the unit modules. But we've been working on it for a while, and those videos are up. So we're going to go right to where we post it. And then we're going to look at the progress we've made so far. So these are the 3 requirements. Your spot illustration sketch. For those of you just starting out, we looked at this sticker sheet of monsters. It was Halloween week, right? Filled with spot illustrations, with digital coloring behind line art. So if you want to check those out, you can. This kind of thing. And it's always good to have inspiration for line weight, for color choices and palette. Once we made our sketch, we learned how to digitally ink. And we did it the very best professional way possible. We turned that inking of the outlines into a vector. So we used Illustrator to vectorize it, to image trace it into a clean vector, then brought that EPS vector file back into Photoshop at 11 by 14 by 350 pixels per inch, so a little bit larger so it can support our poster. And then we colored behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that file. Whoops. And it's assignment 5. I have it marked yellow because it's still in progress. And I'm going to open up my latest PSD. So sometimes I have to look at the list view and see the date modified. So it's going to be the PSD that was modified on the latest date. So on the 31st. And you can see this file is 109 megabytes. It can be pretty large. So that's going to open up in Photoshop for me. And if you go through your layers, you're going to see all the component parts, right? So here on the very top, this is very important to remember for our final exam and for your knowledge after you're done with this class. When you digitally color using line art, which is most of what freelance digital illustration is in the world, more than 50%, you make a digital coloring sandwich with black on the top. So this is my black line art. So I call it black bread, and then white on the bottom, white bread. Then, in between those two layers, which are both locked and protected so you don't accidentally rasterize them or paint on them, then you put your coloring layers. The most basic kind of sandwich is a grilled cheese sandwich. So this yellow one, this cheese, that's what's called flatting. Flatting is the first step in which you fill in every shape with a background color. So if I turn off the white, you'll see that there's nothing here that's not filled in, even when it's open and it's not contained by line art. You use your lasso, you kind of put it in like panes of colored glass. What's interesting about flatting, it's an entry-level digital art job, is you fill every space, but you fill them with kind of arbitrary colors that are just easy to differentiate from each other. So that then in the next phase, you're coloring, you can pick the colors you actually want, and you just swap them out using the paint bucket tool. And then you can modify those. It takes a while to get the right flat colors. So these were the flat colors I landed on. Now, flat color is the first type of digital coloring. If that's all you do for this, and you do it well, then you've done the job. You've met the requirements. So what does that mean? Well, if we go to my cheat sheet here that's in the directions, it's also under links for you if you want to download it, my little lemon cheat sheet. Flat color, to be finished coloring, needs to be local color. And that means that it's the color that the thing actually is. So flatting is different than local color. Flatting is arbitrary color, but filled in. My chosen local colors, those are the color the thing is, no matter the light condition. So you can see there's no light hitting this in any kind of direction. There's no shadows, there's no highlights, but I have my local color. So next, the next step is if I want to split it, like that Redbubble example I showed you, into two tones of, or take my flat local color and split it into a lighter version and a darker version. This is called duotone. And if I do that with a crisp edge between them, a crisp delineation, that is what we call hard edge duotone. In animation, it's called cell shading. And that's what that can look like. Now that's only adding shadows. You can also do that with highlights, right? And so what I did was highlights that were soft edged. So you can see that soft transition, and shadows that were hard edged, just to show you all the different varieties, right? And then I blended the two. And then we did this last option, which is full spectrum. So we have duotone hard edge, duotone soft edge, and then full spectrum is where we finished our demos last week. And that's where you include colors that are not variations on the local color. So not for the lemon, lights and darks of the yellow, but throwing in purple and green and other spectrum colors into it, even if it's subtle. So you can see that full spectrum. You can see the difference between the duotone and the full spectrum. I have this kind of glow of this cyan coming from the middle and affecting everything. And then I looked at it and I noticed, well, the handle of that megaphone doesn't go to where I wanted it to go. It's kind of in the palm. So I just extended a little bit of it into the bottom there. And the way I got this texture was to do a duplicate and then to set it on dissolve as a layer style and then an overlay of 76, because I get kind of bored with really, really clean digital color like that. So I like to break up the pixels with that dissolve filter. But that's just a personal choice. All right. So this is now my finished spot illustration up to a certain point, right? Where I start adding special effects. So I'm going to teach you about color holds today, and then offset borders, and then separation into professional CMYK halftone dots, which is actually one of your learning outcome requirements, that you understand what's called halftone theory, which I'll pass this around. We talked about this a little bit last week. Marked in yellow with that post-it. This is what you'll need to know by the end of the semester for the final exam. These halftone print angles.